folks, and welcome to this week's show. And as you can see, our show is going to be on the mighty Iron Maiden. And this week we have a new special guest. We've got Chris.
Hi, how you doing?
Chris and I are former colleagues from a long, long time ago, it seems. But there we have it. And Chris is a bit of a metalhead from what I remember. So we're going to
Yeah.
invited him onto the show, and we're going to discuss the mighty Maiden. So Chris.
Absolutely.
Before we sort of do all the whole album ranking showing the 17 albums, I'm sure they'll have a new album out later this year, so
Yeah.
it sure will be defunct in about 6 months. But, but do you want to do you want to tell us how you sort of got into Maiden?
Yeah, sure. So one of the guys I've seen on one of your previous shows talked about like his older brother having a brother 6 years older than him, and it's really similar with me. I've got a brother who's 5 years older than me, and him and some of his mates were really into Maiden and Anthrax and Metallica and such like, and it just meant from a sort of probably an oddly early age, I just really got into Maiden. So really from about the age of like 9, 10 was when I was sort of like sinking my teeth into Maiden. And it's interesting because when I was doing this, as we'll come on to, it means you got a slightly different context about how you approach things because what you love as a 10-year-old, and the fantasy and the myth and all that kind of stuff, a little bit different to sort of if you're 16, 17 when you hear some of the earlier songs. But that was it, and I think it was a time when there was a lot of Stock Aitken Waterman nonsense around, and everyone I know is listening to Kylie and Jason and all this kind of stuff. And it was just like a breath of fresh air, and it was interesting, and I don't know, it just hooked me from the start. And then it's just kind of stuck since then. Some things when you're young they don't stick, some things do, and Maiden just absolutely stuck. Yeah.
Right, excellent. Well, first time I heard them was probably Running Free. I think they did it on Top of the Pops when I was a kid, and I
That's
thought, well,
mad.
I really quite liked it. Obviously, being a punk kid as I was at the time, metal and punk you didn't sort of go with, but there were certain bands who crossed over. So
Mhm.
Motorhead were the most obvious choice. Like all the punks would like
Yeah.
Motorhead or AC/DC as well, were probably the one. But Maiden was sort of on the periphery of that as well. So I quite liked that. And then, of course, the whole Lucozade advert in 1982-83 when Daley Thompson was on, and it was brilliant. And you had the Phantom of the Opera, and I just
Yeah,
remember
yeah.
thinking, "What's that music? That is fantastic!" And the guitar and the drums, and that was Clive Burr's drum, and you think, "Wow, that's incredible!" And that was the other one that I sort of really, really liked. So I remember getting the album and really liking it, but being a bit scared to tell my mates that I liked a little bit of Iron Maiden.
It's funny. I think I also quite like the idea of it made me a bit different.
Yeah,
Because everyone else saying everyone's listening to this pop nonsense, and I'm
yeah.
stitching my massive Maiden patches onto the back of my denim jacket when I'm in year six and stuff like that. Was great. But yeah, yeah.
Quality. Right. So we're gonna rank the albums. We're gonna do it, folks. We're gonna do 17, 16, 15, 14. So we're gonna do a group of four, and then we'll do the group of three, and then we'll go into 10 to 1 and a bit of depth. So, Chris, if you want to start off and go do your 17, 16, 15, and 14, do you want to just tell us what you've got there and give us a bit of explanations?
Right. So I've got from 17 to 14. I've got Senjutsu at 17,
Oh,
Virtual 11 at 16, Final Frontier at 15, and Dance of Death at 14. Now, I say that with a little bit of guilt about Senjutsu, right? And I think this is a difficulty for a band like Iron Maiden, that when you've got 16 albums, when you've got a job and you've got kids and you're busy and you've got 16 albums and then this band releases a 17th one that's like 80 odd minutes long, and you listen to it a few times and think, yeah, it's all right, but you know what? I haven't listened to Number of the Beast for a while, so I'll stick that on. And if nothing really sticks with you straight away, it tends to sort of drift. So I feel I've given it two, but
oh,
I'm aware that that might be a little bit harsh.
right. No, well, before we do that, then, because I forgot, folks, I'm just going to put the rankings on the screen here. So, as you can see on the screen, folks, number five is a masterpiece, of course. Four and a half's a classic album. Four's excellent. Three and a half's very good. Three's good. Two and a half's fair. Two's weak, which is where Chris has gone straight in there. One and a half is very poor. One's awful. And zero point 0.5s don't bother. And in the rare occasion, like the Doors show, and feel free to go and check our show on the Doors. It got 0 stars, one of their albums, so check that out, folks. Um, so you've got in at number two there, then, Chris, for Sujitsu. So do you want to talk us through the rest of your choices?
Yeah, so my next one's Virtual 11, and this is where we come to the Blaze issue. And I really feel for him. I was trying to think of like an analogy to describe what it must be like taking over as Bruce Dickinson as Iron Maiden singer. And I remember watching England play cricket last year when Harry Brook was trying to captain them, whilst Ben Stokes was walking around the outlet, and everyone knows, everyone knows, and it's just not the same. And it must be so hard. And it just wasn't the same. And as I'll talk about later, I think there were already issues. It's simplistic to blame it on the singer. There are a couple of redeeming features. Future Real, The Klansman, and they still performed both of those live with Bruce in later days. But again, it's not something that I find myself sort of wanting to listen to be honest. So I've given that two as well. Um, and then 15, I had The Final Frontier. Um, it's really, really long. And again, I don't know. Part of me feels I might be being a little bit harsh on this, but again, it felt like nothing really stuck with that one. Where I go up from two to two and a half with my number 14 with Dance of Death, which I think's got a little bit more interesting. I found a little bit more interesting. It was the one where there was uproar about the cover, um,
Oh,
and I don't know. It's
it's
never a great
terrible.
thing. Yeah, well, but at the same time, I've never think it's a great thing for an album if the most thing people talk about is like the album art rather than the music. That's not a massive recommendation for the music. I liked it. I like Adrian Smith. I like he did more writing on
Yeah,
that. I like they've got like an acoustic song on it. And I like I kind of like the idea. I've got through 13 albums before they actually had a proper acoustic song. That kind of made me chuckle. It reminded me a bit of Chili Peppers' "Breaking the Girl." I kind of like that. I think it had Nico's first songwriting credit on as well. Quite proggy, but I had a bit more time for that. That one's sort of stuck with me a bit more beyond the terrible artwork that we
yeah.
can all get angry about. So that was my bottom four. So Dance of the Death got 2.5. I've got the others getting two.
Yeah, I mean, I've got some crossover there, if you like. So it's odd in it because yeah, I'll talk about that in a second. So my it's 17, we're definitely into the Blaze territory, unfortunately. Good singer for me, the wrong singer for Iron Maiden, and that as I say, it doesn't mean he's not a good singer. It's just not in the
Absolutely.
right band. So I've got Virtual 11, which I've just written, not a very good album. It's poor. I've given it 2 stars. I just don't think his voice fits. Angel and Gamblers, 9 minutes, and I think it's about 4 minutes too long. You know,
Yeah.
Lightning Strikes Twice is very poor. I've Klansman's quite decent. I quite like that. Cosmos there, Amigos, not a bad ending actually. The mood's not bad on them. It's very down. The album's
Yeah.
very down, but it just doesn't work for me. So it's 2 stars.
He
Next,
reckoned it was a happier album, Blaze.
well, yeah, well, I've yet to
I
discover that.
missed that.
And I'm probably never going to listen to it again. Number
Yeah.
16, I've got The X Factor, which is a terrible name for an album. 70 minutes. I mean, they're in too long a territory at this point. And this is the problem with CDs. They felt like they had to fill CDs up, which is just
Yeah. I
just
hadn't thought
just
of it in those terms.
just wrong. Um, it's 2 stars. It just doesn't work. Sign of the Cross, epic song. I like the drums. Darkfield, decent song. I've written on that one. But then Lord of the Flies is really lackluster. Oh God. Fortunes of War, spoiled by his voice. Could have been a really good song. The Aftermath, I've just got bland. Blood on the World's Hands, pretty decent. Edge of Darkness, possibly the closest to classic Maiden. I thought I didn't mind that. And 2 AM's okay, but the fact that I've got okay tells you all
Yeah.
you need to know. You think, again, 2 stars, worth the listen, but I probably wouldn't listen to them again. Final Frontier, I saw that tour. Yeah, it's 2.5 stars. I've no 2 stars still. It's just too long again. And I know
Yeah.
people go, you shouldn't be complaining about Maiden length. I love a bit of prog. I love a bit of metal. I love a bit of prog metal. Maiden cross those boundaries really well, as do Metallica now, funnily enough. So they're
Yeah.
both prog metal bands, really, in my opinion. Or they've turned into, and it's just all right. El Dorado, Coming Home, Talisman. When the Wind Blows, excellent end song. I really, really like that actually. But yeah, Yeah, there's not enough on it. And I remember seeing it thinking, oh, so the new stuff was terrible when they did it live. And then number 14, still at 2 stars, No Prayer for the Dying.
Right, right.
The Tail Gunner, very good. Bring Your Daughter, I love it. I don't care what people think. It gets a lot of bad press, and I like that song. The Assassin is good, and Mother Russia is very good. So it's maybe it's 2.5 actually. I'm good. No, I'll go 2.5. I think that's probably there's a couple of real cracking tracks on it, but there's a lot of filler on it as well. So I've got No Prayer for the Dying in at number 14. So 13 to 11, Chris. Where have you got it at 13?
Right, so this is where we come to my other Blaze album. So I've got 13, I've got X Factor. At 12, and I've got Matter of Life and Death. And at 11, I was all over the place with this, Fear of the Dark. Okay, so all of these are 2.5 for me.
Right.
Um, the X Factor, like, oh, I sort of done my best with it. I've really tried, and I think that you can tell I've tried because it's not in my bottom four. Um, Lord of the Flies is awful.
Yeah.
That was the one that I think that was the only single as well. I think they released of all of it. Like, come on, no one, they're not talking to people before they make that choice. Um, I really like Sign of the Cross. I think that's a really good. A friend of mine claims that Sign of the Cross is as good as Ryan the Ancient Mariner, which is, you can take these things a little bit too far. I'm not having that. But I find myself sometimes wandering around humming Sign of the Cross. There's something good there, you know.
Aye.
I thought Man on the Edge is quite good. I think there's enough there for it not to be a 2 star. So I've gone 2.5 with that. At 12, I had a Matter of Life and Death, and like I feel like I don't actually have that much to say about it. It's just like, yeah, decent, solid album. It was all right. It was better than the ones that have come underneath. Um, and I was tortured about Fear of the Dark. It's got a really weird context, I think, for Maiden. You think 1992 being in Maiden after Nevermind's been released,
Yeah, yeah,
and
that's a really good point actually. I never thought of that.
I think there's an element of, I said at the start how a lot of this feels quite there's a real element of sort of context for me.
Mm,
So my sort of context for this is, having loved Iron Maiden, and then sort of I'm about 13, 14, and Nirvana come out, and you listen to Soundgarden, and just as it felt like the Maiden albums were sort of dipping. Fear of the Dark is like, it's an absolutely astonishingly good song. Like it's brilliant.
yeah,
And there's some really interesting ideas on there, like Fear is the Key. There's some really interesting ideas on there, but it's just, I don't know. I am going to stand up in a few minutes time for No Prayer of the Dying, because kind of at least it knew what it was a little bit. It just, Fear of the Dark it just felt pretty messy to me. So I've gone 2.5 for that. But again, I don't want to make anyone cross it. Um, but I think there's a significant element of context, because I said at the start Iron Maiden sort of stuck with me, but
yeah,
there also was a period when you could see everyone's hair go from sort of there to there, when
yeah,
grunge came in and people want to be more like Kurt Cobain.
yeah.
I was at that sort of age where you're like that, so it didn't fit with me at the time, and I've not really embraced it since, if that makes sense.
It does. Excellent. So good choices there. Well, my number 13, I've gone with Fear of the Dark. And I've gone 2.5 stars as well. It was the last
Mhm.
Bruce Dickinson album before he sort of left and then came back. It's just lacking something. I think it's
Yeah.
aged. I think there are too many songs on it as well.
Hmm.
I mean, From Here to Eternity is a good song. Afraid to Shoot, I've written okay. Fear is the Key. I actually think that points to what the next two albums are going to be like, funnily enough.
Right.
I've written Childhood. Again, it's just not bad. Childhood's there, not bad. Wasting Love's a pretty good song, actually, decent ballad. The Fugitive, I have to say, has got some of the worst lyrics I've ever heard. It's just like it just makes us laugh when they pick films or books and they sort of write songs based on them. And I love the film The Fugitive. It's a great film, and
Yeah, yeah,
the lyrics are awful.
It's
Uh,
funny you can get it wrong, can't you? Like I like the idea of some of the things, but you can get them wrong.
yeah,
Yeah,
it just doesn't work. Judas be my guide. It's decent. Fear of the Dog's great, but they do it virtually on every tour.
yeah,
And
yeah.
it's just like do something different. It's a great song, absolutely love it, but do something different. But yeah, so I've given it 2.5 stars. Dance, right? I'm going up a little bit now because I've got Dance of Death, and I've given it 3 stars. Uh,
Right.
our Wildest Dreams is not bad. I really like
Mhm.
Rainmaker. I think it's pretty decent. Great guitar. Dance of Death's fantastic. I love it. Uh, Passion Deal is a terrific song. I think it's a
Yeah.
great song, actually. A really, really good song. Facing the Sun's good. Journeyman's not a bad little sort of ending as well. I think it's a good album.
Mhm.
I should really knock a half a point off for the sleeve, but there we have it. We've discussed how awful that sleeve is. And then number 11, I've got Brave New World.
All
Uh,
right.
it 3 stars. The Wicker Man's pretty good. Brave New World's all right. Blood Brothers, long song, repetitive, but actually good. I like
I
it.
like that. Yeah.
Nomad's very good. Out of the Silent Planet is excellent. I really, really like that. Uh, Thin Line Between Love and Hate, which is not the old song that the Pretenders covered, is really, really good. It's a good album. It's a good album. So I've given it 3. I think it's a good album. So I'm up to 3 stars at this point, which means the album's good.
Mhm.
So now we're into the Big Ten. What are you
Yes.
going at 10 then, Chris?
Right. I've got Book of Souls at 10. And I've gone Book of Souls, and I've given this 3. Um, Again, I don't see a little bit of bias. I saw them on the Book of Souls tour, and
Yeah.
it was brilliant. So it with Maiden, it does make a difference when you see what these are like live. Some of them, and they played quite a lot of them live, and there's something really impressive about that. Again, it's very long. I don't think they necessarily need to be as long. Some of the albums, some of the songs. If Eternity Should Fall, I like that. I always like well, it's not anymore, is it? But what we would have called side one, track ones, like
Yeah.
thinking about how you start albums and
Well,
like
it's
yeah,
sort of gone back to that, hasn't it, Chris? It's
yeah, actually, yeah, it has, isn't it? Yeah, there was a period of time when it wasn't. Um, I like the sort of the change ups. I said that's a bit too long, so but I do like that. Death or Glory, I enjoyed that sort of acoustic start. He loves his flaming aeroplanes, doesn't he? Like he won't stop going on about this aeroplane. There's a bit in that where you mentioned sort of ropey lyrics before, where he talks about, in this sort of climb like a monkey, I think it is, and like, come on, we can do better than that. That's not. But I like that good riff. It's got the woohoo bit for live, where for participation. Book of Souls again. I thought that was really really good song. Nice classical guitar intro and sort of
yeah.
like the build up. It sort of it felt. And it's when you have these long albums, you've got like I don't know people use the word epic, don't they?
Yes.
But it can just be long. You can, and I don't mean Maiden here. I just mean generally. Like I think people use it as a synonym for long, and it can just be long and rubbish. So when you're going to have something that's quite long, you've got to justify it a bit. And I
Yes.
think some of these did in a way, some of the other ones didn't. Um, Empire of the Clouds. I've I've got a thing about songs, right? I felt this way about Psychedelic Pill by Neil Young. When you can go on two, proper car journeys, and by the time you get home, you're still listening to the same song that you set off listening to. Like
Yeah.
I can go to work and come home and still be listening to Empire of the Clouds, right? And I like the piano start. That's quite interesting. You don't get a lot of that in Maiden, but I like it. But again, it's almost 20 minutes long. I felt that was a bit too long. But I felt the Red and the Black I really liked. I thought that was good.
Yeah.
I thought there was enough there for me. Like that's my first 3. That's a good album.
Yeah.
I'll listen to that. There's things on there that are memorable and are worthy of being sort of a bit longer, as Maiden like to do.
Well, the Neil Young analogy is interesting because I saw Neil Young doing that tour at the arena.
I was there, yeah,
And each song would finish, but then he'd do a load of like 10, 15 minutes of feedback
yeah.
between each song. And I'm thinking, I've seen Ramones do set lists in the speed of that feedback.
Yeah, it was
You know what
mad.
I
Yeah,
mean? It was painful. It
you
was
could get the
painful.
barn back and not miss anything.
Oh, I was like, my God, I reckon about an hour of that gig was him changing guitars and doing feedback. It was just
Yeah.
torturous. Anyway, my number 10 is also the Book of Souls.
Oh, right.
So yeah, and I've gone 3 stars, and and people moan, oh, about the length. It's too long. It's a double album. It's 92 minutes. For that amount of time, I want The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. I want something that's going to knock my socks off, or London Calling or something, and it doesn't knock my socks off.
Mhm.
It's very good. I think the artwork is fantastic. It's
Mhm.
possibly my favorite sleeve. I think it's a brilliant cover.
Interesting.
Absolutely love it. Again, what I like about Maiden is that each album almost is a concept because there's always a running theme through it. Not
Yeah.
necessarily every song, but there's a running theme, and in this case, references to the soul and mortality clearly stand out. Now, there's some really good songs on it. Speed of Light, I really like. The Great Unknown has got a fantastic guitar solo, and I love the sound of it. I think it's a really good song. The Red and the Black is I've written here, epic tune,
Yeah, there we go.
ironically, and I really, really like it. It's possibly my favorite track on the album. Book of Souls is a really good acoustic sort of type song. And then Tears of Clowns, brilliant, based on Robin Williams' unfortunate sort of death. It's a good album. It's just too long. It might go up over time, but it's one of them you've got to really take a sort of leap in the dark to listen to the whole
Yeah,
album. And I think it's just a bit too long. As I say, if it were like The Lamb or something like that, then I've great. I'll go start to finish. But this is just too long. There's not
yeah.
enough to keep me interested. But it's still 3 stars, so it's a good album. It is a good album. So what have you got at number 9 then, Chris?
Right, number nine, I've got No Prayer for the Dying. Right, so that's where I stand up for No Prayer for the Dying.
Right.
And again, I think there's a bit of context here. I got this for my 12th birthday. I got it from a mate of mine, James Hutt, at my 12th birthday Tenton bowling party. And I remember thinking, I love that because like at the time, his mum was my English teacher. And I
Right.
like the idea of her going around shopping for my 12th birthday present and getting us something that's got like hooks in you and stuff like that on. I just think that's really funny. Um, and as a kid, I didn't. I mean, it's they obviously had this shift to try and be more gritty. And
Mm,
as a kid, I didn't pick up on it. It was just another good Maiden album to
mm,
me. So I never had that feel. So I've sort of revisited it sort of with a sort of different sort of set of years. Um, I quite like I quite like that they were like, right, we're going to try and do something different. I like that, you know. I also love because this is the point where Adrian Smith left. And I love the idea of someone at the start of the 90s saying, nah, we need to be more prog. That is someone who doesn't care about which way the cultural wind's blowing, isn't it? I
yeah.
love that. So I like that we're trying to do something a bit different. I guess it's probably hard to go back to being gritty when you've spent 10 years touring the world and millions of adoring people and the bills are paying for themselves and stuff. But
Yeah.
I've Tail Gunner, a good start, really like that. Assassin, I think like they almost just missed the big choruses, like good songs, and maybe missed those big choruses. I think Holy Smoke's a cracker of a song, I really love that. No Prayer itself, that really like listening now, I'm like that really stands up for me. I really like it. Um, Hooks in You, Bring Your Daughter, I know daft. I hadn't realised at the time that Bring Your Daughter was like on Nightmare on Elm Street 5 soundtrack. It was like
It's all right.
it's bonkers. And Steve Harris like, we're having that, you're doing that with us. Um, uh, just a bit of daftness. Got number one, bizarre.
Yeah, it did.
It's
Yeah,
like
it did.
really, really odd. Hooks in You, which I was the last Adrian Smith song that he'd written before he left in the Charlotte trilogy. I'm not massively for me, but and I loved Mother Russia. I think
Yeah,
as an ender as well. I think it's a really it's and funny. It's almost like at a time when they were trying not to do epic things. Maybe that felt like it could have been
yeah.
under sort of different circumstances. But I thoroughly enjoyed No Prayer for the Dying as a kid. I listen to it now, and I feel like I listened to it when I was a kid. So that gets three for me. That's a good album for me.
Right. Well, this is that's good, good. And I think also albums do that link to your sort of youth as well. Do sort of have that sort of cachet as well, don't they?
Yeah,
So, right, this is interesting. This is where the controversy kicks in for me because my number 9 is Peace of Mind. So,
right. Okay.
and I've given it 3.5 stars. I mean, there's some cracking songs on it, of course. The first album to feature Nico
Mhm.
McGrain, who's a great drummer. Although I personally, I still think Clive Burr was just sounded better for me. But there you have it.
Right.
Not controversial as it may be, Nico technically is magnificent. and a great guy, of course. I just think it's a very good album. I think it's a very good album. So I'm not saying it's rubbish, of course. It's very good. It starts off with Where Eagles Dare. Again, you think, oh, wait, man, the lyrics are great film. But, Revelations, I think it's about Alistair Crowley, if I remember rightly. Flight of Icarus is great. Absolutely love it. Die With Your Boots On, good. Trooper, absolute corker, of course. It's brilliant. Unfortunately, my friend passed just last year and he had that played at his funeral. And
Oh
I just
wow,
thought, class, that was just great,
that's that is class.
Brilliant as we're walking in, the troop I was on, and it just made us laugh. I thought, yeah,
Yeah,
great, man, I
yeah,
love that. Still Life, good song. Quest for the Fire, some high notes. I think it's probably the weakest song on the album. Sun and Steel, based on the samurai legend of Miyamoto Mushami. I think I've pronounced that incorrectly. Very good. And then To Tame a Land's a very good song. So I've given it 3.5. It could be 4. I like it, but it's there are definitely better albums for me, and it's an album I listen to every now and again. It's very good. It's a very good album. I know it's controversial, and some people have it in 1 and 2 in that, but
yeah.
I've got it in number 9. So there we have it. What have you got at
Interesting.
number 8, Chris?
Right, number 8, I've got Brave New World, which so that's a slightly sort of higher than you had it. No, I was trying to think about Brave New World, and I was thinking, I remember when Star Wars 7 came out, The Force Awakens,
Yes.
right? I remember going to see that, and I was like midnight on the first night, and I thought, this is amazing. And then like afterwards, sort of with a bit of distance, people said, but really, was it amazing? Because it's just the same as like Star Wars. I'm like,
It
yeah,
is.
it's like Star Wars, it's amazing, and you're just really relieved because it's got like X-wing fighters and no Jar Jar Binks. That's how I felt about Brave New World. It's I guess there's nothing particularly new about it,
Yeah.
but and I've gone 3.5 for this one, and it just felt like right. Like a Wicker Man, Ghost the Navigator, Brave New World. Like just like it's a really, really like a really like what starting album after the sort of the last 3 or 4 have been. I think that's just like a great start. Um, I like they do like interesting lots of like tempo shifts on
Yeah.
Ghost of the Navigator. The Mercenary, I've heard the Mercenary get quite a bit of grief on Brave New World, but I like that as one of the shorter songs. And I guess one of the it's having 3 guitarists is a bit weird, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really bizarre.
Yeah.
It's really
Um,
bizarre. Yeah.
uh, and I was like on Dream of Mirrors, which is sort of one of the longer ones on there. Sort of, and it's one of the ones where you can they're sort of taking turns, and it feels like there's room for it, and you think, right, this could work. Because on the face of it, it just seems like a daft idea. I remember when Halloween did it the other way around, when Halloween singer left, and when the original guy came back, they kept 2 singers. And I think, like, imagine having to fight for which songs you get to sing live and which verses. It must be crazy. It must be awful, and it must be a bit like that with the guitarist because
Yeah.
everyone's, who gets to do which riff and stuff like this, and it must be a bit bonkers. But I thought it showed there was like room for all 3 of them, and it was just it was like it was good and a sense of relief that like right, we're back on now. Here we are. Let's crack on from here. If you see what I mean.
Like a comfort blanket.
Yeah, a little bit. That makes it sound rubbish, but
Yeah.
yeah, do you know what I mean?
No, I
It
do.
feels like put down, but
I do because you get certain bands you go, oh, I wish they'd do an album like such and such again. It's
yeah,
like when Neil Young occasionally whips out a good acoustic album, which is very rare these days, and you go, oh, that's all right, you know.
he doesn't do it out of spite, doesn't he? He's like, yeah, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Well,
So that's my number 8.
my number 8 is the last album at the minute, Senjutsu, double album again, probably too long. Again, this time the concept on this is about the idea of invasions, and I think there's some really good songs on this. Dickinson's voice is clearly aged at this point, and of course, why wouldn't it? Why wouldn't it? Which it always annoys me when I'm going, oh, his voice isn't the same, or she looks such and such, and you get, hold on, you know, what do you want them to do? Look like they're like 28 forever? It's or sound like that. It just doesn't happen. It's daft.
Yeah, yeah,
So his voice is aged, but it works. It's an epic song. It's got references to the Great Wall of China. I love the guitar licks on it. Some really good songs on this. I've got Writing on the Wall, which I really like. It's got a hard rock sound to it. It's very Bad Company sounding rather oddly. It's not the full-on Maiden sound. And there's a
mhm,
couple of tracks on this, and what I think about Maiden at times is that they're clearly influenced by Thin Lizzy. and
Right, yeah,
you can hear that on writing on the wall. It's got like a Lizzie type solo. The
the
whole
twin guitars.
the war solo is great. There's often a lot of dual guitars on as well,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
got all that. That's great. There are not many better bands around than Lizzie. Lost in the World, soft acoustic start, possibly about Native Americans, is a great song. Days of Future Past is a top song. It's old school Maiden. I love the old tempo changes in it. Great solos. I love that. It starts with like various tempos, just move all over. Darkest Hour, clearly about Churchill and all the rest of it, and World War Two is great. Death of the Celts is probably my favourite song on the album. Um, Subdued guitar and bass intro, and then of course you get all the sort of bombast and the guitar sounds and the tempo changes. Parchment, 12 minutes long, you think, God. Uh, but yeah, not bad. And it's a very, very good album. Great sleeve again as well, actually. I love the sleeve. But
Yeah,
good album. Good, a very good album. Oh, if I could go between 3.5 and 4, it's probably where I'd put it. 3.75, if you like, it's somewhere in that territory. So,
it's your ranking. You can do what you like
well,
with
I'm going for it then. 3.75. It's a very good album, very very good album. Really, back on form, terrific. So that's my number 8. What have you got at number 7?
Right, 7 and 6. I was going back and forth
Yeah,
with 7 and 6, and for a particular reason. And this is where we're going to disagree, because I've got a feeling that you'll have these higher up. But number 7, I've got Iron Maiden, and I've given that 3.5. I think it's really good. It's just, again, I think there's an element of this in terms of my ranking that these were um, some of the albums I came to maybe a bit later.
yeah,
They weren't as almost engaging for sort of 11, 12-year-old when I started listening, if you see what I mean, when I really got into it. But I it's this it is interesting. It's so this and Killers, which I'll talk about in a bit. They are different. They're so there's a real sense of like power and energy about them
yeah.
in a non sort of Bruce Dickinson running around in spandex kind of way, a different kind of raw energy about it. I love the start. It's like wah wah guitar, which I don't tend to associate with Maiden. And I'm running free. It's a
Great
great song.
song.
It's an absolutely like regardless of like genre, this that or the other. It's just an absolutely brilliant song. And again, not one that sort of struck with me when I was younger, but it obviously when you listen to Maiden over a long period of time, it's a belter. And Phantom of the Opera, like Phantom of the Opera is just, I think that is magnificent. But one of the things I love, I was picturing, the sort of the guitar riff at the
Yeah.
start. It's kind of ridiculous. I was trying to think if you had a guitar teacher and you said to your guitar teacher, "Oh, I've come up with this riff," and you played that, your guitar teacher's like, "No, that's far over the top. You need to keep it simple. People won't go for that." But it just works so well. And I think that's absolutely magnificent. You got the start of the Charlotte trilogy with Charlotte the
Yes.
Harlot as well. But I thought that was I thought it was good, but it just I guess didn't resonate with
Yeah.
me in the same way that some of the others did. So that was my number 7.
Right, well, okay, well, my number 7, and I'm going 4 stars here, ironically, is The Seventh Son of a Seventh Son, which is a really good album. It's an excellent album, in fact, hence the 4 stars. Moonchild, terrific. There's some great songs on it. I mean, The Evil That Men Do is fantastic. I love it. Title track is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Love the whole concept of it. Love the musicianship on it. Prophecy, brilliant. Clairvoyant is just absolutely magnificent. Can I Play with Madness is like, it's all right. It's good. It's okay. It almost feels a little bit contrived, and I think that lets the album down a little bit for me.
Stands
It's
out, doesn't it?
it's like, oh, we're going to put a single on. And you're thinking, really? Are you made with a single? And it's like, okay, but like a one that sounds dated as well with the whole intro. Can I play it? It's not bad. I'm not saying it doesn't work. It's just not quite my cup of tea as a song, but it's all right. But 4 stars. I think it's a very very good album. I know some people have this as number 1. That's fair dues. I have no problem with that at all. There's definitely a slight change in tone. And remember, at 88, at this point, in '88, I had the record shop at that point. The
Right.
what bands that would people would come in with T-shirts, and some of the big T-shirts, Maiden were one of them. the other ones, of course, the biggest ones was Megadeth.
Uh,
Everyone had Megadeth t-shirts on, Metallica, Anthrax, but it was yeah, the metal was just absolutely enormous at the time, and it was yeah, it was bizarre. And so that was all in vogue very much at the time. I reckon mid to late 80s was metal at its biggest. It was just absolutely incredible sort of scene going on at the time. And
it's funny
Maiden,
thinking of, sorry, I was when you're saying that, thinking of how many of those bands played at the City Hall before they could
yeah,
like remove the seats and things like
yeah,
that. It was like
City Hall,
mad.
Mayfair. Yeah, I
Mayfair.
mean those two venues were the sort of main venues. I mean, yeah, I think Metallica played the Mayfair and stuff. Yeah, it's crackers when you think about it.
Yeah.
Brilliant, but bonkers. But yeah, those were the sort of main bands, and of course you had all the whole dark metal scene as well that was going on. Venom, for example, the lads from Venom used to come to my record shop.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Really?
Which of course has took off massively, that sort of sound. So there was,
Yeah.
and so you had all those bands, but of course you had the hair rock bands coming in as well. So you had Guns N' Roses really took off at this
Yeah.
point. So you got all, and not that they're hair rock, of course. You like Poison, that class as hair rock, but so it was all at this point. I think it's the metal thing is at its zenith. It's absolutely top of the draw here. And Maiden, I've got Seventh Son, Seventh Son is a very very good album. I'm not sure they weren't as their sound changed. I think after this album, and they definitely changed dramatically in the '90s. But I think this is probably their last album where they had that sort of style. But
Mhm.
good album though, excellent album, highly recommend it. What have you got at number six then, Chris?
Number six, I've got Killers. This is when I was saying I was
Yeah,
torn between six and seven. You probably
yeah,
figured out sort of what I meant. And again, I think it's really strong. I think there's some great stuff. One of the things that strikes me as funny about Killers is people talk about and you mentioned it about them. It's almost like punky kind of stuff.
yeah,
And I was like, well, and then you listen to like start of Killers and you start off with like an instrumental with harmonized guitars. You think, come
yeah,
on, that's not punk. Um, but yeah, I think it's good. Wrathchild, great song. Like actual. I think it's shorter than 3 minutes, if I remember
yeah,
rightly. Like an actual short, powerful song. Murders in the Rue Morgue, like just really energetic. I really, really like that. There's a real sense of that sort of power. I can see how if you were an age at the start of the 80s, this stuff comes out. It's like bam. I sort of get that sense. One of the really interesting ones I find on that is Prodigal Son, because when you're talking about the shifts in the
yes,
sounds, like to me that sounds nothing like Iron Maiden from then on. It's
yeah.
like totally totally different. And it's really interesting. I think also just a really interesting thing as well. So to me, I actually had them both on the same cassette because I I couldn't necessarily afford to go out and buy the albums.
Yeah, no,
So
no,
I
no.
used to I used to get them from Central Library and copy them onto C90
Yeah,
tapes. And I had Killers on one side and Iron
yeah,
Maiden on the other. So these were two that sort of went together when I was a kid. So the sort of 3.5 again. It's a really good album. But just as I said, exactly as I said with Iron Maiden, perhaps didn't quite resonate with me at the time as some of the well, I can tell which ones I've got
yeah.
left, the later ones in the 1980s.
Right, well, mine number six, I'm going 4.5 stars here. So quite a leap to absolute
Yeah,
belting
I feel a
albums,
bit
yeah.
keen.
So, and I'm going Iron Maiden. I'm going the
All
debut.
right.
I am. I was tempted to go 5 stars and push it up a bit, but I've been being critical. I'm trying to be, but I love this album, and I probably should have it higher if I'm being honest. You had the whole new wave of British heavy metal, which was a huge thing of time, of course, at the time, and you had all those bands breaking through. But Maiden were probably at the forefront of that sort of new sort of group of bands. Um, along like bands like Saxon and all that. I mean, Maiden have been going for about 5 years. I think this year might be their 50th anniversary. And then had
Yeah,
a
that's right.
number of singers
75.
before, like for example, before Paul Diano, and they had different music. It's always just been Steve Harris plus, you
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
know. But he was a great bass player as well. But it's a great album. I absolutely love it. It's a definitely I've got a blend of punk, metal, prog. It's got everything to it that I love it. They've got definitely the Thin Lizzy thing going on with the dual guitars. I like Paul Diano. I think he sounds a bit like Malcolm Owen out the Ruts, actually. I think there's definitely a bit of that sort
Right.
of thing going on. It's just full of great songs. I love Prowler, great intro. Running Free is just fantastic. If I mentioned it, I'm not going too long. Phantom of the Opera might well be my favorite Iron Maiden song. It's
Really,
yeah,
that's a good shout.
it's just incredible. I absolutely love it. As you see, the guitar is nuts. I think it's up there in terms of invention and unusualness. I think it's up there when with the Van Halen's Eruption, something that people hadn't done. I mean, obviously the whole tapping thing, Steve Hackett had done it with Genesis and Brian May had done it, but this is really next level.
Yeah,
Charlotte the Harlot, brilliant. Iron Maiden's a great. It's a punk song basically. It's a punk rock song.
yeah.
It really is at the end. It's a fabulous album. 4.5 stars, maybe it's even five, but I'll go 4.5 just for today. It's a top album, top song. And of course, I think we need to talk about the artwork because
Mhm.
nobody had done a sleeve like that at the time. The whole Eddie thing, and that was so unusual. Yeah, I mean, when that first came out, we've all just got used to it now. But at the
Yeah,
time, that must have been like, what the hell's that? What sort of sleeve? What's going on there? That's so different. It's not got the band on the front. It's not got some sort of awful pose or anything like that. It's just something a bit dark and weird. And it really does capture a whole sort of genre just off that one sleeve. It's brilliant.
I've never, you know what? I love the artwork, and I've never thought about that in terms of it being something new, and what
Yeah,
it, yeah, and then what you avoid, as you say, that posing of bands on front. Yeah, that's an excellent point. I've never thought of
yeah, it's a fabulous album. So yeah, sadly, and it pains me to have Iron Maiden in at number six.
that.
What have you got
Yeah.
number five, Chris?
Number five, I've got Somewhere in Time. So this is, I love the sleeve again. Like that was like
Great, love it.
yeah, a bit different, sort of futuristic sleeve. I really like that. Um, uh, it's an interesting one. I don't think it's got any Bruce Dickinson songs on. I think it was he was sort of struggling a bit, and he just wanted to turn up and be the singer for an album. So it's sort of the writing sort of a bit different. It's maybe got a few more. It's got some of Adrian Smith's finest moments.
Yeah,
It's got a decent opening. I don't think it's got one of the best side one track ones on it. Caught Somewhere in Time. It's good. Wasted Years is just like, oh my days, like that's everything about that. The riff, the way the bass comes in, the solo, the lyrics. I think that's just him. That's him complaining about life touring. I think it's just an absolutely fantastic song. I absolutely love that. Heaven Can Wait. I love the clean guitar riff at the start, and then the sort of the distorted snaking in over the top
mm,
of it. I thought that was really really wonderful. I really like Sea of Madness. It's not one that maybe I don't think people sort of rave about as much, but I really like Sea of Madness. Um, and some of the longer ones, Loneliness, Long Distance Runner. Apparently, Paula Radcliffe was a fan of that. But yeah, and Strange
Based
and
on the great
Strange.
Alan Sillitoe story, of course.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's good. They're good stuff for English teachers. Some of these
Well, as we
albums.
are.
I'll come on to that later as well. And yeah, Stranger in a Strange Land, I think is great. Uh, Alexander the Great's fine. It's another one with the lyrics. Like to me, the lyrics read like spark notes. Like it's like if you had a knowledge organizer, that would be the lyrics to that song. And I could do with a little bit more than that.
Yeah.
But I thought it was a brilliant album. I've given it four. I feel like I'm being slightly harsh compared to you with my rankings, but I've given
No,
that
no, that's
four.
absolutely fine. You go with
Yeah.
what you think is right for you. Well, my number five, I've got Number of the Beast. It's a fantastic album. Again, I've gone 4.5 stars. This is Bruce Dickinson's first album. He just left Samson, if I remember rightly. And was Clive Burr originally in Samson as well? I can't remember now. I think he might have been. It's the last album with Clive Burr as well, who as I say, I think was a great drummer. Bless him, fabulous. I love the fact that there's a lot of controversy in the whole Satanism thing as well. It just makes me laugh. It's very tongue in cheek. It's quite camp at times, some of this album, which I quite like that. Uh, it's excellent. So you've got things like Invaders, which is great, bit repetitive, but very, very good. Children of the Dam's just a great song. The drums are magnificent. The guitar groove is superb. It just sort of really rocks. Love it. The weakest, well, The Prisoner is very good. I like that a lot. The intro off the TV show makes me laugh every single time, and I find it very kitsch, basically. I think the weakest song on it is 22 Acacia Avenue. Um, it's about prostitution. Starts off like the song Friday on My Mind. I'm trying to remember who wrote that now, but it starts off a bit like that. And I always think of Banana Man when I think of this because he lived at 23 Acacia
Yeah,
Road, if I remember rightly.
yeah. You don't get those mixed up, do you?
Yeah. I just think it's like a so song. It's the one song that lets it down actually, because the rest of the album is sensational. Number the Beast. They've got a guy who impersonates Vincent Price basically at the front because they couldn't afford to hire him. So they got some other guy who basically just does a Vincent Price impersonation. And
Yeah.
yeah, 1982, of course, Thriller came out, and of course,
All right.
Vincent Price on that as well, of course. So
Ah,
there
yes,
is
I know
you've
that.
got that sort of dual thing going on there.
Mhm.
So he must have been in vogue that year for some reason. It's based on it's Omen influenced, I believe. I could be wrong, but I believe it's influenced by that. But it's a great song though. Run to the Hills is absolutely sensational. It's a Dickinson and Harris song, but I don't think Bruce Dickinson gets writing credits on it because of his coming from the other band.
All right.
I think he wasn't allowed to have credits on some of the songs. Now I think he does actually help on some of these songs. Gangland's very good. Hallowed Be Thy Name is brilliant. Prog metal, really great song, great, absolute classic. It's a really great album. It really is a really great album. You can see why they did a classic album show on it as well. Totally get it. 4.5 stars, terrific album. As I say, it's just 22 Acacia Avenue lets it down for me to be a 5-star album, but it's fab. So, Chris, what have you got at number four?
Right. I've got Peace of Mind at number four. So this is again a bit of a diversion from
Yeah,
yours because this one is, I guess it was regarded as a sort of a bit of a disappointment, but I loved it. As you say, Nico's first album, and I know what you mean about the lyrics to Where Eagles Dare, but that, like it's like, so we've got a new drummer, let's have a great drum intro to the first song. I like that. I like the start of Where Eagles Dare. I think that's really good. Again, a lot of them. I guess the other thing we haven't talked about is the link between some of these songs and like the live albums. You
yeah,
know, like some of their live albums were like Live After Death was
brilliant.
absolutely brilliant, and it didn't come out as an album, I don't think, until later. But the video for Made in England, which was like their
Mm.
seventh son tour, like I had that on VHS. I remember like racing home from school and watching half an hour of that before like I had to go and do something else. And some of these are like Revelations. I remember I love how they write these like really earnest, really deep songs, and then in live they try and make what he introduces it. It's about opening a pair of curtains or something. I like that. But I like that, and like it's sort of good bit for crowd participation as well. Flight of Icarus is one of my very, very,
Yeah,
very favourite songs. I think that's absolutely magnificent. Um, and it's kind of a terrible version of the myth if we're getting technical, but like I think it's absolutely wonderful. And I remember, and I can't remember which tour it was. Was it the Legacy of the Beast where they played it? And I don't think they played it for ages. And I remember like he's running around the stage singing "Flight of Icarus" with flamethrowers on his arms, like jetting flames. And it was just, I remember coming home and my wife said, "Oh, how was the gig?" And you hear yourself trying to explain that you've been seeing this 60-odd-year-old man running around with flamethrowers on, and then you just end up saying it was fine because you can't explain that.
no, you can't. No.
It's just brilliant. So I really really love Flight of Icarus. It's a absolute cracker. Um, uh, and the trooper again. There's almost not that much you can say about it
Yeah,
anymore. It's absolutely brilliant. Um, I really liked Tame Land at the end, and that's Dune. Apparently, they were going to call it Dune, but frankly, they had a little bit of a hissy fit and wouldn't let them, so they had to call it something else. The funny ones, he's like, some of the songs, I don't know if it's because, if you get written by a bass player, he's not thinking about how you have to sing, and he has to sing them so quickly. Like, it's like he's almost like rapping like
yeah,
Eminem. He's like, I'm
yeah.
like, it goes so quick, and I don't know if maybe sometimes something gets lost in that a bit, and you have to listen to it quite carefully to really appreciate it. But I really liked To Tame a Land. And I can't remember Quest for Fire for me is the weakness on the album. And I remember even as a kid, when you start off in a time when dinosaurs walked the earth,
Yeah,
And he's like, "Come on, lads, we can do better than
yeah.
this." And the students there, I think it's based on, I think it's based on a book, or I can't remember which. But like they've added that bit in. It's not really there. It just seems a bit odd. So Quest for Fire, I'm not a fan of. But the rest of it, I thought Peace of Mind was a really strong album. That's one I still listen to lots to this day.
So how many stars did you give it?
Oh, sorry, that was four. I've given that
Oh, right,
four.
okay. Right, well, this is the shocker for people. My number four is A Matter of Life and Death.
Right.
Right, so this is an album I've started listening to again in the last few weeks in terms of preparation for this, and I thought
Yeah, yeah.
this would have been way down. And then all of a sudden, it's just like, oh, it's really connected. I thought, what an album this is. I think this is probably the album where the musicianship is at their peak.
Right.
The musicianship is just incredible on it. I think it's Dickinson's last hurrah of being able to hit all those high notes and do all
Mm-hmm.
that sort of Bruce Dickinson type of style of singing, if you like, before he's had to slightly adjust. And that's absolutely fine. As I say, your voice gets older, you have to change. It's just a brilliant album. I think it's absolutely top drawer. The certain songs jump out. The Pilgrim is terrific. These colours don't run is fabulous. I think the reincarnation of Benjamin Brieg is one of the best songs that they've done.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just great. I think Lord of Lights is incredible. I love the guitar, I love the drums, I love the whole structure of it, the whole epic sort of thing, and it is epic. I think the musicianship, I just love the whole. It's almost got it like a military feel as an album. It's like they're going into battle and charging. And I feel this whole
Yeah.
album has that sort of feel. And Legacy is exactly the same at the end there. It's just huge, big, epic sound, and it's beautifully produced, actually. They just sound really rejuvenated and really full of fire. And I think this is a really great album, actually. And I've gone 4.5 stars, and I wouldn't be surprised in a couple of years' time it might go up to five. I think it's a top album. I'm quite taken aback by how much it's really like. A few years ago, I listened to it, well, that's not bad. And then I've listened to it a few more times, and then over the last few weeks, I've gone into it and thought, well, I'm going to put that back on again. That's really cool. It's a great album.
That's really interesting. It is like I'll take away with a couple of the ones you've had higher up, but like it is hard when you've got so many albums
Yeah.
to really give some of the more modern ones the attention that I'm sure they do deserve. It and that's I will revisit on your recommendation. So yeah, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
that's the one that's suddenly made like clicked. It's like
Yeah,
the others, yeah, good, but that's the one that went, wow, that's right, full on charge. You know,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, I really love it. I think it's a fabulous album. So, A Matter of Life and Death, 4.5 stars, fabulous. So, what
Great.
have we got number three? We're the big three.
We're in the big three, and I've got 4.5 for this one. This is Number of the Beast for
Yeah,
me. It's brilliant. Like it's a brilliant album. It's I haven't put it given it five because I think there's some, if you're a masterpiece, you
yeah,
can't have much weakness on there. And I think there
yes,
are a couple of moments of weakness on Number of the Beast. Again, I don't think that I don't think they play their best foot forward with the side one track one Invaders. I think it's good, but
yeah,
I don't think it's as good as some of the other things. And the other sort of areas of weakness, I think Gangland's all right. I'm 22 Acacia Avenue. I think would be slightly problematic now as well. But yeah, it's like it's all right. I don't know. It doesn't do it for the same way. But everything else on there, I absolutely love. And again, there's some contextual stuff. And I love Children of the Damned. It's one of those where you end up singing along the guitar line rather than the words. Cause it's
yeah.
sort of, I love that. When you got just bands and stuff where you start singing along to things that aren't the words, you know you're lost to it. You know you're deep in. Then Children of the Damned's one of that for me. Um, I love The Prisoner, and it was as a teenager, it was an entry into the TV show, so I ended up
I
becoming
love the TV show. It's
yeah.
brilliant.
So that it was my entry into that of that, and I've done all the Dorky, go to Port Mary and stuff, Map
Yeah,
the Third Village on New Wall and stuff, and it was very much my entry into that. There's a great story of them ringing him to find if they can use that bit at the start, because I had to get his permission. And
yeah.
the manager, I can't remember who it was rang but they managed to get through to him when he was living in America. And he's like, what? What? We want to use your intro for our song. What kind of band are you? heavy metal. Heavy metal, you say? Use it. And then he just hangs up on them. And that was their permission to use that bit of start. I love that. And like when they played it live and they'd have that, you'd have the
Yeah,
thing on the background of him running down the beach. I love that, the whole theatre of it. That really appealed to me with The Prisoner. That was one of my absolute favourites and still is. Run of the Hills, again, you get some of these songs where it's like a bit like the Trooper. It feels like there's very little to
yeah.
be said that hasn't been said. It's just fantastic, isn't it? It's just brilliant. Number of the Beast, I've made a note of the controversy as well. Like, it's really funny. I remember being warned about, listen to these bands and,
Yeah.
be careful of the satanic influences. If you're not careful, you might end up an English teacher. Um, and like, it is quite camp. I love the fact that at the end of it, he's like, I must inform the law. Well, he's done the right thing. He said, that's it. Ring the police. Everything will be fine. Pop down to the local station. That'll sort out these satanic rituals. Yeah, I love that. It also had one of my favourite mishearings for years when he talks about reflections of my warped mind staring back at me. I always thought it was reflections of my Walkman staring back at me. It wasn't long ago I realised I'd been singing that wrong for
Oh, brilliant.
too many more years than I'd like to admit to be honest. But I think that's again a great track. And Hallowed Be Thy Name is just
Magic.
absolute. It's also one of the ones where if I'm sitting, I'm often if I'm doing some work and putting stuff, I'll pick a live version because I the live it's just amazing. It seems a ridiculous one to be able to do that well live,
Yeah.
but live then there's so many different versions of it. It's just absolutely astonishing. The build up, the bells, the art. I struggle to think of a more impressive song, um, of anything really than "Hallowed Be Thy Name." I think that's an absolute cracker. So yeah, there's a couple of weaknesses, but the rest of it's absolutely superb. So 4.5 stars. Number of the Beast.
Yeah, great choice. My number three is Somewhere in Time. I'm at 4.5 stars as well. It's that whole references to space and time in this one. As you mentioned before, I love the artwork. I think I love that sort of dystopian, futuristic sort of look. It's just fabulous. And of course, they use guitar synths on this album, which work. I know it gets a bit of criticism, but I think it actually works really well. It's now this is where we disagreed. I think the opening's great. Caught Somewhere in
All
Time.
right.
I think it's a terrific opener. I love the rhythmic changes on it. Wasted Years is just brilliant. About traveling, very catchy chorus. Reminds me a bit of Hanai Rocks. Funnily enough,
Mhm.
there's a couple of tracks on this album have got that Hanai Rocks sort of feel, and that's definitely one of them. But it's a great song. Wasted Years is fabulous. Sea of Madness, I really like the sort of minor chord aspect to it. It's a little bit derivative, but it is excellent. Heaven Can Wait, really catchy. That's the other one that reminds me of Hanai Rocks, funnily enough.
Mhm.
And I think it's a very good song, really catchy chorus. Loneliness Long Distance Runner, which we've mentioned, very Lizzy. I think it's very
Mhm.
Lizzy with the dual guitars. I love the tempo changes. Stranger in a Strange Land is proper Steve Harris thumping bass. I love all of that. It's proper. You can see him doing it. It's got an unusual feel, but I love it. Deja Vu. It's got like a Gary Moore sort of Parisian walkways sort of intro. It's a really heavy beat, great song. And then
Yeah, I didn't mention
Alexander,
that one there.
yeah, it's definitely got that sort of feel. And then Alexander the Great, of course, is a huge song. I agree with the whole Spark Notes thing. That's maybe it's just me and you, but with our profession. But it's brilliant. It's a good song, really good song. Absolutely get it. I think it's a fantastic album. It doesn't get enough love off some people. I think it's a fabulous album. So that's my number three, Somewhere in Time from 1986. So, and
Yeah.
it doesn't sound dated at all. It doesn't have that big
No.
drum sound or anything like that. Just works really, really well. Really well produced.
Yeah.
Mark
Brilliant.
Birch, remember, who was their producer on a lot of all the early albums. Brilliant. Did a great job. So, what have you got at number two, Chris?
Right, number two. This is my first five rated album, and for number two, I've gone Power Slave.
Yeah.
Um, this is the first Iron Maiden album I actually possessed the actual album of.
Right.
And as a result of that, I think it's probably the one where the artwork's the most like important to me,
Mm.
especially as a kid, because it was on vinyl, so you could see it. It was big. I think people
Yeah.
forget that with CDs when you used to get them on
Yeah.
vinyl, and it was impressive, and then cassettes came along, and it wasn't quite the same. And I remember just spending hours looking for like little clues and dark bits of graffiti and stuff on the sort of temple and stuff. I remember absolutely loving that. Um, and I think this one it's harder to find any actual weakness at all in it. I think
Mm.
it's fantastic. I think there's some proper highs. I've been a bit critical, I guess, of some of their openers, their side one track ones, but I think as a
Oh,
starting album, Aces High is just it's just absolutely, of all the songs about planes, like, oh, it's an absolute cracker. Um, and I think they opened their they used to open with the Churchill speech and stuff, I think, on Live After Death, and then going into that. And I think at their Legacy, was it Legacy of the Beast, where they had the massive model of the Spitfire above the
mm.
stage? It's
Yeah.
mad. And that's just, it's brilliant, and it just holds up so well. I think that's fantastic. And then they follow it up with 2 Minutes to Midnight, which is again, it's just like, it's again, you get with so many things, oh, it's a great riff, it's great this, I think it's a good song, I think it's a good idea, it's a good song, it's a bit depressing. I was looking at the doomsday clock, we're up to 89 seconds to midnight now, so maybe it needs updating, which is a little bit worrying. But I think like it's absolutely two absolute crackers to open with. Maybe some of them, the middle section of it aren't quite as strong. The duelists, I think that's not a weakness. They're really good, and back the village. But then you come to the end, like Power Slave and Rhyme the Ancient Mariner, and oh my days,
Yeah.
like I think it's you sort of associate these long songs with Maiden, but like they had to start it somewhere,
Mm.
and you had like between them they're about 20 minutes, isn't it? It's about 7 minutes for Power Slave and about 13 minutes for Rhyme the Ancient Mariner. And I'd heard nothing like it in my life. Like I really hadn't. It was astonishing. I love Power Slave. There's a sort of darkness to it. The lyrics is sort of a sense of desperation. But Rhyme the Ancient Mariner, I think it's not ridiculous to say I think Ryan the Ancient Mariner is one of those songs that probably, like, I think I might have a different career. It put us onto the poem at a young age. I spent hours pouring through an illustrated copy of the poem, comparing the song, like just the build up, the shifts in mood. It does feel like it's long, but it doesn't feel like it's long. It doesn't drag.
Yeah.
It's perfect. It captures the journey so well, and calms down the slow bits and the desolate bits, and then when it comes back in and it's like it becomes more positive, it's still so many years on. It's astonishing to me. I think it's
Yeah.
absolutely wonderful. So I was really struggling between two and one. I think Rhyme the Ancient Mariner might be my favourite Maiden song,
Mm.
um, but I've gone with the album at number two. But it's a masterpiece, so I've
Yeah.
rated it 5.
Yeah, I agree. I've gone 5 stars here as well, and I've gone with Power Slave in at number two as well. It's brilliant. You've nailed everything on really there. I mean, Aces High and 2 Minutes to Midnight are two of the greatest album openers you're ever going to get, as far as I'm concerned. Dead catchy choruses, great themes, just brilliant. Lost for Words. I would
Yeah.
argue should have had lyrics on it because it's a really great tune.
Yeah, it is good tune,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
Flash of the Blade always makes us laugh because obviously he's Dickinson is a swordsman to coin a phrase, uh, but uh, but I always think of the old TV show. You'll probably not remember the Flashing Blade, but it was
No,
like the 70s and the 80s, early 80s, and this TV show called The Flashing Blade. It's brilliant, one of the best theme tunes ever. Go and check it out on YouTube, folks. You can
right?
fight for what you want. It's brilliant theme tune, brilliant. Set in France and Spain, brilliant. What a show! So it always reminds me of that. The Duelist, very good. Back in the Village, I love the guitar. Back in the Village, I love the guitar on it. Power Slave is magnificent. I love that sort of Egyptian vibe to it.
Yeah,
The mirrors, the sort of the cover of obviously is based on it. Good middle interlude. I love the way it changes. It's like got a Led Zeppelin type of start and solo, and then it goes full metal. Again, I've got Lizzie-esque written on it. I love the rhythmic changes. It's an absolute classic. And then, as you say, the Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner, based on the old Coleridge Taylor poem at the end, which is superb. I mean, I remember studying that poem at uni. And it's so it's fantastic. It's just an incredible song. Again, all the changes in it, and yes, it's long, but as you say, it doesn't feel long.
yeah,
And it's just a brilliant journey to be on when you're listening to it. It's an incredible song to finish an album with. I love the scream on it as well.
Yeah,
Very sort of Roger Daltrey-esque. It's a brilliant album. It's a five-star album. It's an absolute classic. So yeah, my number two there is Power Slave. Gonna be
it's
number
it,
one.
it's sorry, just going back. It's interesting about Ryan the Ancient Mariner. I just sort of kind of thought of this. Now, when we're talking about songs that are 18, 19 minutes
Yeah,
long, like you make a bit of a benchmark with something like Ryan the Ancient Mariner. And you think if you're going to write a song that's 18, 19 minutes long, it kind of needs to be better. If you can do all of Ryan the Ancient Mariner and the peaks and troughs in
yeah,
13 minutes, like it's quite a statement to live up to.
yeah.
And it's
No, I think
interesting when we're talking about some of the ones that maybe are too long
yeah.
and some of their albums.
No, I absolutely agree because sometimes you can just cut some of the fat off. I would describe with some of the
Yeah.
songs that we've got. Yeah, absolutely. So brilliant, brilliant. What's your number one then, Chris?
Right, my number one, which didn't feature high up in yours, is Seventh Son of a Seventh Son, which is, and it's kind of and you sort of made the point, it's kind of the natural conclusion of a type of their sound that they were
Yeah,
sort of leading to through, I guess, Somewhere in Time was sort of on the way there, and it was sort of more extreme with Seventh Son of a Seventh Son. Again, contextually, this was like my entry point in Iron Maiden. This was the first album that I listened to. It was, um, and I also, I remember, obviously my VHS version of Made in England. I must have watched it so many times, and I had a lot of these songs on. Um, it came to me at a time when the subject matter is really weird and odd and mysterious and interesting, and the sort of fantasy element of it was really interesting. I remember I was actually still at primary school and like hunting around the school library because there was no you couldn't Google stuff, about whether it was true that the seventh son of a seventh son could see the future and all this kind of stuff. So it had like a really genuinely profound impact on me, to be honest. Um, uh, I think it's got an absolute belter to start again. Saying that some of them maybe I felt don't start as well as they could do. I think New Child's are brilliant, like absolutely brilliant opener. And again, they used to do it. That was their like opening when they did it live, and it's just I think that's just a really great starting point. Infinite Dreams is really interesting and sort of deep song. Can I Play with Madness is a funny one. It doesn't bother me in the same way that it bothered you, but you feel like it's a bit different. I feel like it's different, but it doesn't bother me. Um, it is interesting because it is different. Interestingly, it was on my favorite. Now that's what I call music album.
was it?
Right? Some of these now albums are like imprinted on my soul, and it was Now 12, cassette one, side two, track five,
Oh, that's
and
mad.
it was after Voice of the Beehive, Don't Call Me Baby, and Heart These Dreams. They were the two songs. So it was just weird listening to Now 12, and you had like Johnny Hates Jazz and Danny Wilson, Mary's Prayers on it, and then like Iron Maiden are there. It's just I remember thinking that was really odd. Um, but it's not one of my favorite ones on there, though. I still think it's really good. I love the Evil Let Men Do. That's an absolute cracker. And again, seeing him live when he's in his ridiculous outfits and his boots that go up to his knees, balancing on the monitors when he's singing "Living on a Razor's Edge." Oh, I love that. I think that's absolutely fantastic. Um, uh, the Prophecies, probably my least. It's the song that kind of stuck with me the least out of the whole album. I love the Clairvoyant. There's some, especially as a young kid, there's some like lyrics in there that sort of stuck with me. The as soon as you're born, you're dying. Thinking, blimey, not sure I like that. I'm only 11. I was wondering, that's a bit much for me. And similarly, the idea of only the good die young, like
Yeah,
it's a good finish, a good finisher as well. I read the book. Like, it's funny that it's like based on a sort of fantasy book called Seventh Son, about the idea of this family, try to you've got to have your seventh son born while all the rest are still living and all this kind of stuff. And from what I understand, Bruce, it's kind of a concept album, but it isn't. It just ended up being more like a thematic link. And I think Bruce Dickinson wanted it just to be like a proper concept album
right.
based on the book, whereas it just ended up being, I think generally Steve Harris sort of gets his way, and it just ended up being like a sort of thematic link about it. So it's concepty, but not like a full-on concept album.
Mm.
But I just thought it was magnificent, start to end. It's interesting. It's cracking musicianship. I haven't mentioned this. The actual title song, "Seventh Son of a Seventh Son." I love that. The
Great
build up
song.
on that. I think it's absolutely magnificent, and the album builds up to it really nicely. So you have to even it builds up to it really nicely. So I think it's a really well constructed album from start to finish. It's hard that one of the things this has made me think about is what is a good album? Is it just an album with some good hits on? Is it about the structure of an
Yeah,
album? And this strikes me as one where from start to finish, the structure of it for me is perfect. I think it's an absolute Bobby Dazzler.
yeah.
So 5 stars for me.
Right, well, mine is no surprise to you. My number one is Killers.
Yeah.
Which might surprise some, might not surprise others. It was released 9 months after their debut, which so came out in 1981. It's the last album to feature Paul Di'Anno. And they probably it was the right thing to do. Bruce Dickinson is a better singer, but I think Paul Di'Anno does this such a good job on this. It's the end of that period of Maiden, if you like. But obviously, I love this. I love the two albums. I think they're brilliant with them, and they work really, really well. Produced beautifully by Martin Birch, who had also previously worked with Deep Purple, Rainbow, Wishbone Ash. So you've got all that sort of sound going on, beautifully produced. The album's mostly written by Steve Harris, and it's got the theme of murder and killing on it is right throughout it, which I think is just really quite clever. It really is different for that period of time. It starts off with the Ides of March, which subsequently they had to give a credit to Samson. And if you go and listen to the Samson song, very similar, I think is the
Right.
phrase. So
I didn't
they
know
had to
that.
give a credit to Samson, which ironically, of course, featured Bruce Dickinson at the
Yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah.
Wrathchild has the drive and bass. It's a terrific opener. It's about a man looking for his biological father. It's great. Murders in Rue Morgue. Brilliant. Edgar Allan Poe story. Again, I've just written here big letters, Lizzie. It's definitely
Yeah.
got that sort of thing, which obviously appeals to me, being a huge Lizzie fan. Another Life, it's a bit grim, I have to say. It's about teenage suicide, or feels like it. I don't like the drum sound on it though. It's an awful drum tom opening. It's almost got that Sooty and Sweep sort of drum sound at the beginning. But and we've mentioned Sooty and Sweep, didn't we, with Nick O'Brien?
With Nico, yeah.
Features on the show. It's brilliant,
Brilliant.
which is so bizarre. But it really moves. It's a brilliant song. Love it. Genghis Khan, great instrumental. Not sure why they called it Genghis Khan, but there you have it. It's
Why
just
not then?
it's probably because they could. It's excellent. When I first started rehearsing with my bands and stuff in the 80s, you often hear bands doing Genghis Khan in the next room. It was one of those sort of rites of passage where you hear metal bands doing it.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant.
So it was always one of those. Innocent Exile is great. It's a bit deep purplish, I think. It's got a classic rock to it, feel to it. I love the drums on it. It really swings. It's a really great song. Killers, fantastic, co-written with Paul Di'Anno, is a masterpiece. Clearly has some links to Dostoevsky's sort of Crime and Punishment. It's fantastic song. Prodigal Son, bit more laid back, mystical horror, references to the Lamia, which of course Genesis had done earlier on with Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. Purgatory, brilliant, rockier tune, great guitar tune, and then Drifter, last song. And I've written in brackets here, it's like a twin Thin Lizzy sound, traditional rock song. Always reminds me of like the Littlest Hobo. Sort of the theme person go from place to place. I quite like that. But
Yeah.
I think it's an amazing album. It sort of caps off that period of time because many of these songs have been written from 1976.
Mhm.
So it's five of the songs have been written in 76 or been rehearsed with other members or previous members. So they've been around, and I think this is the end of that sort of cachet of songs that they'd had. And then they
Mhm.
go on to the sort of new style Maiden. But I love it. I think it's a great album. It's one of those albums that, yeah, everybody should have a copy of it. So there we go, folks. Power Slave clearly seems to be the overall winner by the feel of it. Nobody can complain about that because it's great.
Absolutely.
Send us your lists in, folks, and leave your comments. No doubt there'll be a bit of discussion, I think is the polite way of saying it. Subscribe to the channel. Go and check out other shows out, on the Beatles, XTC, The Jam, Kate Bush, Genesis, whatever. Go and check out our shows. We've got numerous shows. We've got over 50 other shows. So go and check them out. Till the next time, from Chris and myself, take care. Bye-bye.